Okay, so Iowa. This is Iowa. You know what I mean? It's that kind of brand of football. They play low and slow. Slow and steady wins the race. They have gotten an upgrade, as much as that can be said about a upgrade in quarterback with Iowa in particular. They're not known for their barn burning offense, where obviously there was an era of time where Oregon was known for that. This year, unfortunately, Oregon's offense has struggled, and we have discussed this before, though, that I think largely it's because, sorry if that stupid mouth noise is too loud in the mic. Anyway, uh, Iowa is a team that they are the epitome of Big Ten 3 yards in a cloud of dust football, solid defense. They want to slow down the game and turn it into a field goal fest. And when you have to beat them, you have to beat them. Long ball caught. Go Rainbow Warriors, touchdown. And they're down 14-21 to a 2-5 San Jose State. But nonetheless, go Warriors. They're 6-2. They're going bowling this year. Hell yeah. Go Hawaii. Okay, let's see. Okay, let me turn that autofocus off because it looks like it's going crazy. Anyway, so Iowa slows down the game. They want to turn into a field goal fest because in past years, and it's sort of the Ferentz style, to have it be a knockdown, drag-out fight, and makes it to where you have to beat them either via field goal or last-second touchdown type of thing. They want it to be a low-scoring, sort of sloppily played NFL game-style game. And a lot of that has to do with they haven't always had Heisman-level quarterbacks, nor have they had amazing running backs or receivers. Just their offense in general has not always been flashy in the sense that they put up points, and for them, battles are won in the trenches. And when you win battles in the trenches, sometimes it's not a high-scoring affair, a flashy affair, or shootout, anything like that. Now, this year is a little different in more ways than one. This year, Iowa has been capable of putting up points. I think last week they scored 42 points. I can't remember the opponent, and they blew them out, but they put up points. And I think they've done that once or twice before last week over this year. And then on the flip side, you have had Oregon this year struggle. They have struggled on offense. Now you can look at it in multiple ways because obviously you had Oregon not put up a whole lot of points against Penn State, but you could say the pageantry, the moment, and at the time, the level of team that Penn State was, that was the type of game you were going to have anyway. It wasn't going to be a shootout like the Big Ten championship last year. It was going to be a grit your teeth and win type of game. And with Wisconsin, you had the weather conditions that could be argued why the offense wasn't in top shape either. And then with Indiana, it was going up against a team that was just as good or better than you, that played better than you, and you had an off day, so on and so forth. And then the rest of the season, Oregon was putting up points and putting up stats. So there are factors within those games where Oregon's offense struggled that could be argued. And then on the flip side, that can't be argued either. They're just not playing well. The play calling's not great. Whatever. You can also have those criticisms just as valid as the praise that is also, I guess, just as valid. And big shouts to West Virginia beating Houston today with a big upset. There's a few upsets this week. Maybe we'll talk about that further if you want me to. Go ahead and leave your chat down below as to which game or topic of discussion team-wise you'd want me to talk about. Anyway, yes, so there's those two sides of the coins that are equally justifiable with Oregon's offense in that case. Now, I say, in the sense of this matchup with Iowa, and it's a road game, and frankly, weirdly enough, for as young of a team as Oregon is, Oregon has played better on the road than they have at home, which is weird. With young teams, usually they play way better at home than they do on the road, but it turns out this year it's sort of been the flip side, and that is a rarity with younger teams. Now, if they can put the pieces together at home soon, I hope that comes to fruition very soon. And if those pieces are brought together in those ways, then look out. Even more so. So with Iowa's style of play versus Oregon's general style of play, the stereotype even in an era, 3 eras away from Chip Kelly and Mark Helfrich, Oregon is a high-powered offense, right? High-powered offense. You hear that all the time. However, during Oregon's struggles, they are struggles, yes. But I sort of touched upon this when after the Penn State game was Penn State was trying to slow the game down because Northwestern sort of had some early success against Oregon doing that, but also that, especially with Stanford, over the years and the decades, that was always the blueprint to beat Oregon. Slow the game down, take away time of possession. Usually, when Oregon was back in the day, when Oregon was blowing out teams, time of possession was a irrelevant number unless the time of possession was in the favor of the team that was getting 4 to 5 yards a carry and winning the game. Then time of possession became relevant again. Otherwise, Oregon would score in 45 seconds and time of possession meant nothing. They put up 60 points and had the ball a quarter of the time. Who cares? They put up 60 points, right? So that was always the blueprint. And with Iowa, that is their game. They want to run the ball 3 yards in a cloud of dust, control time of possession, let their defense pin their ears back. Also, shout out, to SMU that beat Miami today and knocked them out of playoff contention. There's Cristobal for you. Sorry, guys, but that's just what it is. Cristobal. Duck fans have tried to tell you forever that Cristobal is going to Cristobal. And it wasn't all bad that he left. Like I said, I have a relatively objective view of Cristobal. That's all I have to say. However, so Iowa style of ball. I know I'm all over the place right now, but I'm watching highlights from this end because we'll get to this actually. So let's start with Iowa and Oregon. So the idea of the blueprint to beat Oregon seems to play in Iowa's hands completely. Slow down the ball, or slow down the game, have the ball more in time of possession, and get stops on defense. Now, what you would call offensive struggles for Oregon, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it, the offense has struggled many times and plenty of times over the course of the season, just as much as they have thrived. Now, putting that aside, what kind of game are you playing? Now, Oregon's biggest struggles back in the day having those games was because they were a shootout team. They were a team that relied on quick scores and just running the other team out of the stadium before that other team could catch their breath and understand what's going on. That when people have been able to beat Oregon back in the day, they were able to get their bearings and control things of what's going on. That was always the Achilles heel of Oregon. Now, Oregon now seems to be trying to find that balance where if it's a shootout, we can still keep up in a shootout and beat you in a shootout. If it is going to be a field goal fest, that's fine. We're going to beat you then too. We know how to adapt, and we know how to understand and adapt to a slow game. And like I said before, that's sort of what the Penn State game proved, where that game was going to be slowed down. It wasn't going to be allowed to get out of Penn State's control to have Oregon run away with it. And Oregon said, all right, we can play this game too. And they did, and they were successful in that. Last week with Wisconsin, the rain and conditions didn't stop Oregon from playing Oregon football in the way that Oregon is branded as a football program now. Back in the day, that could, in a Chip Kelly era, that could have been easily an Oregon loss, because it's like now Oregon in the Chip Kelly era had good running teams. They got rushing yards, but what I'm saying is Oregon as they are now can prepare for things to get in their way and be able to circumnavigate those things getting in their way. In previous eras, a monsoon like that with crazy wind, Oregon would be screwed. They wouldn't be able to throw the ball, which means they'd rely on the running, and then suddenly they wouldn't be able to run the ball, or they would fumble the ball a number of times to end up losing that game to Wisconsin. Because again, Wisconsin likes playing that game as well. They trust their on paper not so talented, but actually talented, stingy defense, right? Oregon in that game was able to say, you know what? We're not going to be able to put up 50 on Wisconsin, but we know how we are going to win this game, and we know that we can execute this game. Guess what? You know what? We're just going to give it to our studs in the backfield, and we're going to win this game on the ground. And we're going to have our offensive linemen finally get their heads out of their butts in the second half, and they're going to win this game for us. It's been very, very rare that Oregon has been able to put together a program that can do those things. It's either one or the other. All in, all out. It's one extreme or the other. Oregon has that enough of that balance. So, as far as Oregon versus Iowa, where this matchup could be where Iowa's going to slow the game down, rely on their defense to get stops for their offense to get enough tries to win the game by a touchdown or a field goal fest, whatever it is. Oregon can reciprocate that and trade punches in that style of game too. So this matchup isn't necessarily as lopsided as a lot of people in the media would have you think. So with that particular angle, this game doesn't scare me. However, this game also does scare me in those same ways. One of two things. First, let's talk about this being a bye week. Oregon so far has had a not great track record of coming off bye weeks. This needs to be the game where that changes, where the bye week is used as rest not developing rust. Use it as a way to actually prepare and not get soft on your game plan, and utilizing travel in a wise way. This is the bye week that needs to make sure that the bye week issue changes in Oregon. However, that hasn't happened yet, and we don't know if it's going to happen yet until the game is played, so that part also scares me. And I believe Iowa is also on a bye week, and we don't know how they handle their bye weeks as a program. The other thing that scares me is, yes, the same way that Oregon could benefit from that play style difference, it could also hurt them. Where the game does slow down, and while Oregon generally can adapt, they don't. That could be an issue, especially if it's an away game and the crowd starts to believe, the other team starts to believe, it could roll downhill very fast. Also, it is the circumstance of it being now, it's November football. It's a new season now, especially after a bye week. It is 0-0 on the season. It's a new season. And with the way things are looking, as far as the conference and the national sort of view is going in college football, it is very likely, in fact, highly probable, that Oregon now has to win out. So, Iowa is the quintessential stereotypical trap game. And this was also a trap game people saw at the beginning of the season as Duck fans. This could very well be the trap game of the season. It has all the ingredients of it. So, while there are factors that are in Oregon's benefit to win this game, those same factors that are a benefit could be the punishment, if you will. The con, the opposite of benefit. Get your thesaurus out and choose the word for yourself. Put that word in the comments, in the chat. So those factors could be detrimental or beneficial. We obviously will find out next Saturday. But those are just the things that you have to look at moving forward